All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to, I'll call this a brief overview video of your IRB proposal, which this is a class for your research action plan. So research action plan and IRB proposal are essentially two terms that we use synonymously in this program. So if you see either of those, they're all kind of talking about the same thing. You will create your research action plan, and then you will kind of transfer those ideas into the actual proposal form, the actual IRB proposal form, the actual IRB application. And so that's how we use those. I'm not going to go in depth in this video as to like what's really, really deep in each of the documents and resources that you have here in this assignment. This is really just an overview to help orient you to everything. So I'll start with Midland's Institutional Review Board, or IRB. That's what IRB stands for. Institutional review boards kind of differ across institutions and organizations. And so we can read about institutional review boards and IRBs collectively as a whole, and they all usually have similar goals or aims in mind, but each of them function really, or can function differently, especially depending on how big the institution is or how small the institution is. But essentially what Midland's IRB is here to do for us as a doctoral program is number one, to ensure that your research study is ethical and minimizes harm to participants. So as part of this coursework, you will also be engaging in a Canvas course that's dedicated to the Institutional Review Board, where you'll go through some training. You'll read about ethics and ethical research with human subjects. I like to call them people, but yeah, human subjects. And so part of that, all of that knowledge should be translated as to how you are shaping some of your research studies. Now, remember that some of that, a lot of that language and training materials are set out for people who are also engaging in like experimental research with participants, with human subjects, like biological experiments, like engaging in some sort of medical procedure or a new medication that's coming out, or they might have like a control group and a treatment group, one's actually getting the medication, one's getting a placebo, things like that. So it's a lot of that is geared toward how we can engage in ethical research, because we know, and you will learn, unfortunately, in our history, especially in our history in the US, has been a lot of unethical research, especially against marginalized populations. So it's really important that we understand some of these key ethical ideas, and the IRB helps to kind of keep us all in check. I am going to assume that many of you here engaging in improvement science in your organizations, that a lot of your research is going to be ethical, but there might be little things along the way that we can do in order to protect our data or protect our participants, and then not just be kind of loosey-goosey. It's everywhere. The IRB is also here to protect you as the researcher. So to make sure that the steps that you're kind of outlining are also going to be steps that protect you from any sort of maybe retaliation from other things. And so that's a lot of their work. You have in this assignment IRB proposal resources. So the IRB Canvas course that you can probably find information in week 1. You refer to that often and as you need to. So that's something that you can pull in as you're working with your IRB proposal, because in that Canvas course, you have some resources that you might need to download that are specific to Midland, such as like a sample consent form. Use the sample consent form that Midland offers, just because that's the language that they're familiar with. You will probably need to edit it and revise it a little bit. Like you have to massage it so that it fits for your work, for your research study. But go ahead and use that template. So you're going to find some other templates there, including an IRB proposal form template. For this program and this course, you will find that our EDD proposal form template is going to look a little different. Every single piece of the IRB proposal form that Midland has is in our template. It's a template that I kind of created, but I adjusted and added some things to help guide you as to how to complete the proposal form. So it's kind of like Midland put out here's our IRB proposal form. I, Dr. Hobgood, step in and I help translate that to you all by giving you some additional steps and scaffolds, by providing some headings, by giving you some tables or figures that you can just kind of input your information to help take some of the guesswork out of it. So you will need to download this document that is here in this assignment. You'll need to download this IRB proposal form, the EDD template. That's the template you are going to work with to create your IRB proposal. You will not need to download the IRB proposal form that you find in the IRB Canvas course. That's for everybody. And a lot of undergraduates are using that for all of their research studies, etc. So make sure that you are using the EDD template. Everything is there. I just added some additional commentary and steps to support you. That is essentially due in week 7. You'll have some work weeks. But this is where you will probably be working this over time. Like when we engage in chair check-ins along the way, you'll be working on this document, but you'll have plenty of time to focus on writing it. The important step is to gather your ideas first and then transfer those ideas to the proposal form. So the goal is not to let me just start writing, because you have to think and figure things out. I bet that if you just start writing your IRB proposal form, you will find that you then have to just delete text and edit and revise and refine, and then it'll start to feel overwhelming. Like, oh, I did all of this work and now I have to delete it. So focus on outlining your ideas, of thinking about your ideas, making everything together make sense, and then at the very end, put it into the template. The template, you'll find you're not writing 50 pages for your IRB proposal. You're just kind of giving these brief summaries and ideas, and so you should have plenty of time to complete that proposal form. There's also a proposal form guidebook. That is a separate document. This is the, if Dr. Hobbit is giving you, if I, Dr. Hobbit, talking to me in third person, and giving you all the additional tips and advice, and here's how to complete the section, here's what to include, maybe here's what not to include, writing tips, etc. You're going to find that in the guidebook. So those are documents that you need. I'll start with the guidebook. The guidebook, if I can give you any sort of tips, is read each item really carefully, really thoroughly. It's there for a reason and really helpful. There's a lot of helpful tips in that document. So when I created the guidebook, I'm imagining, if you have a big or a second screen, that can be really helpful, or if you like to print things out, but you have them side by side. You have your EDD template, which I'll talk about next, the proposal form template, and then you have your guidebook. So the guidebook is telling you how to complete the proposal form template. You can check off each item as you go. I just put little checkbox in there because I know some of you like that. There's something, this is maybe you're getting insight into me. There's something really satisfying about checking off a box. And yeah, keep this document next to you as you complete your IRB proposal form, the EDD template. So I think you'll find it to be really helpful. It might look like a lot at first. It might feel a little overwhelming, but you will see we kind of chunk these piece by piece throughout the course. And so you'll be tackling some of this a little bit at a time. And I will say here, and maybe I even should have said this on the first slide, you've been through these ideas before. You've been through a lot of these ideas, specifically in EDD 810. So this is just repetition. EDD 810 was your practice, your draft, your run through, and you might be using those same ideas, or now is really the time to refine them and really polish them after you've had some feedback from your 810 instructor, or after you've been through some other courses and you've continued to think about and incubate on these ideas. The proposal form template, complete all the items as outlined in the template. That's the form. That's what IRB needs to know. And use the embedded paragraph outlines in the table. So in that template, I created some of those things and embedded them in there. Use them. They're there for a reason. If at any point in time you think you need to add more, we can talk about that in a chair check-in, but you also don't want to overly bombard the IRB with too much information. So your chapter 3, where you'll talk about this in much more depth, will be much bigger and much more detailed. Here, you're really just talking to the institutional review board in the way of here are the steps I'm taking, and just make sure to get those approved. They don't need to know the entire rationale behind everything, but you will find in there that I'm prompting you to go ahead and start thinking about and writing that one, so that the IRB understands why you're doing these things. They understand, especially because if you're going to be working in external contexts and other organizations, Having that rationale is going to help them understand why you might be choosing one thing over the other. So you will see prompts for rationale, and then you will find that in that rationale and in that writing for your IRB, a lot of that translates over to what you will include in your Chapter 3. Item 17 is going to be pretty big. That's where you're attaching all required items. So like you're attaching your consent forms, you're attaching your instruments, your measures. So if you're creating interview guides, you're attaching them. If you have surveys or questionnaires, you're attaching those. You'll see in there that I have this caveat that some of you might be creating those documents later with your team of stakeholders and research team as part of the study. And if that happens, that's okay. You will just submit like an update to your IRB. And you'll indicate in your form that, these are some measures that you will use, but you won't be actually creating them until you maybe are in your plan phase of your study. So if that's the case, you're just letting IRB know, and then you'll submit like an update later once you and your team create those instruments or those measures. But some of these you are probably creating ahead of time, and you're creating now for IRB to review and approve. I also have in here locate other templates, consent forms, etc. from your IRB Canvas course. So use those that are provided. So that's all I have for just kind of this somewhat brief overview of your IRB proposal form, both the template that you see here as well as your guidebook. So use these resources wisely. Do take a look at any of the other details that are here on the assignment page. Questions that you have, bring those to your chair check-ins to help get those answered. And other than that, I know sometimes the last thing I'll say is sometimes folks are maybe a little timid or a little scared of IRB. IRB is really here to help us, and they're not an intimidating group. They're here to make sure that you're doing things really just like ethically. And again, they're here to protect you. There are some horror stories of IRB taking forever, and that's at like other institutions. I have my own personal horror story of how long it took IRB to approve one, and that's really just because someone left and then just sat on their desk for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm just like waiting and had no idea like what was happening. But I do know that our team here at Midland is really great, and they review things really quickly in the grand scheme of things, and so you'll see, and you might get feedback. They might have some additional questions. They might ask for some additional things. That is expected almost. Like almost all IRB submissions might have one or two things of like, hey, we still need this and this, or can you provide a rationale for this? So expect for them to have maybe just a few more questions. They are just doing their due diligence. And so all of that is well and good. You didn't do anything wrong if they ask for something else or if they have some feedback. So all right, good luck.